Sutra Action Law Importance. Let go of your self-importance. Self-irony is an essential trait of an intelligent person, as the most absurd actions are often carried out with a very serious expression. Some of the most terrible events in history were committed by people with solemn and intellectual expressions. Let go of your self-importance is one of the first lessons that Don Juan, the shaman from the Yaqui tribe, teaches his apprentice anthropologist in Carlos Castaneda's book Journey to Aztlan. Most of us can think of such people in our social circles. The lack of a sense of humor makes them, at the very least, ridiculous. Given that they're unlikely to pursue a career as clowns, it's a tragedy. These individuals are overly concerned with their reputation, demanding respect and seriousness from everyone around them. They fail to realize that their inability to adapt to an ever-changing reality doesn't command respect, rather, it invites the opposite. They're just mortals, prone to mistakes. It's impossible to go through life without committing a faux pas. If we fear that someone will laugh at our misstep, we can seize the chance to laugh at ourselves first. It's fun and not hurtful, like a vaccine. A large nose can be hidden and powdered, or we can simply say, "Yes, I have a big nose. Take a look, it's big." Stephen Hawking didn't just have a big nose, he sat in a wheelchair with a voice synthesizer, appearing and sounding strange to an unkind observer. Yet, without his brilliant sense of humor, which became the foundation of his PR strategy, people far from science might have only seen him as disabled. Thanks to his self-irony, 3.7 million people follow him on Facebook, not just for his genius, but for his relatability. The ancient Greek philosopher Theophrastus believed that the ability for self-irony and a general ironic view of life was a trait most characteristic of philosophers. Socrates, renowned for his self-irony, refused to write down his thoughts like other philosophers did. His teachings are known to us through the works of his students, mainly Plato and Xenophon. Socrates is famously credited with saying, "I know that I know nothing." Far from self-deprecation, this was Socrates' way of rejecting dogmatism and encouraging self-criticism and the questioning of others. While self-criticism can sometimes spiral into pathological levels, leading to issues like schizophrenia or what we now call bipolar disorder, Socrates' self-irony kept him grounded. He criticized himself and others, but always with a light-hearted touch, thus preserving his sanity and sharpness even in absurd or harsh life circumstances. Allow yourself the luxury of having flaws and not possessing all necessary virtues. Stop making excuses. Remember, no one has the right to judge you unless you've harmed someone. As we create space for humor and accept our imperfections, self-irony becomes a tool for balancing the inner self. It keeps our self-image flexible, allowing us to adapt to changing circumstances and maintain stability in an unpredictable world. Vadim Zeland. When the well-known Club Petrovich was created, the political consulting market saw large budgets and intense competition. Former colleagues became rivals, eyeing each other warily. It was all far from amusing. In these tough times, when it became common to distance oneself from one's Soviet past, and Komsomol youth, psychiatrist and artist Andrei Bildho came up with Petrovich, a character formed from the habits and thought patterns of our shared past. The idea behind the club was summed up by the motto, "Accept your past and smile. Forget how important and significant you think you are. Stop pretending. Because deep down, you're just like everyone else." Petrovich people of our generation in Russia share the same middle names and the same past. Accept it. Stop puffing up your chest and breathe a sigh of relief. The loss of self-criticism leads to a person with a sense of their own infallibility doing absurd things that others perceive as inadequate. A person loses balance between their perception of the world and the objective view of their personality. For normal life, perfect balance isn't necessary, but losing it completely leads to the breakdown of one's personality. In physics, equilibrium is the state of a system where its characteristics don't change over time. Excessive rigidity in a system makes it impossible to return to equilibrium, meaning any external influence causes greater deviation. Similarly, in personality psychology, without external factors to adjust the individual, overconfidence can lead to degradation. Self-irony helps a person properly assess their capabilities. It's a tool that can return the system to a state of balance. Once this balance becomes stable, the personality can return to a stable condition under any external influences. Don't laugh, P. You're no better than beans, you'll soak and burst yourself. The selfishness of the heart must also be the starting point for our love for others, otherwise, the latter would hang in the air. Friedrich Engels. The famous Dutch Renaissance philosopher Erasmus of Rotterdam, very much in the spirit of Socrates, titled his work The Praise of Folly, not out of disrespect for reason, but ironically, to help people avoid unjustified self-importance and the overestimation of rational explanations. If nothing is more absurd than treating serious subjects in a foolish way, then nothing is more amusing than treating foolishness so that it doesn't appear foolish at all. Irony and self-irony help avoid extremes and, thus, foster true respect and tolerance toward others. It's important to remember that we are merely part of a community. Each society has its norms, and breaking them leads to social rejection. The pressure that society can exert is a significant stress factor for us. However, we can avoid this if we try to understand the rules of the society and avoid placing ourselves above others by letting go of our self-importance. A hallmark of an intelligent and cultured person is not taking their own greatness too seriously but maintaining a healthy perspective. Let go of the need to prove something to others and to yourself, and accept your importance as an axiom. If you choose to fight for your significance, you'll spend your entire life doing so. But if you let go of that fight, you'll gain significance immediately. Vadim Zeeland. The proud may boast, but they fall into dust. By placing themselves on a divine pedestal, a person tries to deceive not only themselves but others as well. According to Islam, by doing so, they encroach on God's throne, associating partners with God, committing the grievous sin of shirk. Quran 112:14. According to Sharia law, divine retribution awaits the sinner for this. Another trap of self-importance lies in complexes and fears, especially the fear of losing face and status. This often leads to dependence on the opinions of others. It's so important what others think of you. This creates obstacles on the straight path of the believer, making the approval of people more important than that of Allah, who they should strive to please. A person consumed with pride begins to live by worldly laws and becomes lost. As is well known, you can't please everyone. As many people as there are just as many opinions. This leads to inner conflict and neuroses. The more a person clings to the opinions and praise of others, the more fearful they become and the more enslaved they are by others. True freedom only comes when one is liberated from all fears except the fear of the Almighty. The Quran says, "Let not their speech grieve you." Indeed, all power belongs to Allah. Quran 10:65. Following Allah allows one to fulfill their purpose. For a Muslim, overcoming self-importance by placing oneself on equal footing with others is essential. One effective way to combat pride is through self-irony. Laughter helps to overcome self-importance and adds lightness to one's actions, bringing them down from a level of world importance. Ancient Christian Patriarcha, monastic writings, describing the feats of monks, who made it their life's task to battle evil, often warned of the dangers of false seriousness. They say that someone, while hunting wild beasts in the desert, saw Abba Anthony joking with his brothers, monks undertaking asceticism, and was scandalized. The elder, wanting to show him that it is sometimes necessary to relax, said to him, "String your bow and pull it." He did so. The elder said, "Pull it more." The man pulled it more. The elder then said, "Pull it even more." The hunter replied, "If I pull it too much, the bow will break." Then the elder said, "So it is with the work of God. If we overstrain the brothers, they will soon break. Therefore, it is necessary to give some relaxation sometimes." The hunter, hearing this, was moved and went away from the elder, edified. And the brothers, strengthened by this, returned to their duties. How do you let go of your self-importance? By refusing to engage in actions aimed at increasing your own significance, seeking attention, demanding respect, proving yourself right, taking offense, defending yourself, justifying, entering into conflicts, displaying arrogance, belittling others, emphasizing their flaws, flaunting your own virtues, etc. Vadim Zealand. The proud cat won't jump on your chest. Although the Torah doesn't contain humor or satire, the famous Jewish ability to laugh at everything, including oneself, is, according to Rabbi Reuven P. Dagorsky, a special human reaction to any situation where internal contradictions are revealed. Usually, we find such contradictions where we are given a falsehood instead of the truth. Hypocrisy, lies, and deceit create an environment that can be greatly improved by old tried and true methods, laughter and mockery. Jews, as an eternal people, were almost required to master such methods. Where there is no threat to human dignity, there is no need for a defensive reaction. It's no wonder that Jews who observe the commandments, including love your neighbor, value kind and heartfelt humor, and it's hard to find examples of cutting humor, deadly irony, or biting sarcasm. Indeed, harsh mockery can wound or even kill. Jewish jokes are short, amusing, and wise, just like the rabbis they tell jokes about. A Jew came to a rabbi for advice on how to get out of an unpleasant situation that he himself had caused. Ashamed to admit his mistake, he said that a friend had sent him with the question. The rabbi gave him a full answer and added at the end, "Tell your friend that next time, he shouldn't be afraid to come himself, let him come and say that a friend sent him." A true egoist is even willing for others to be happy, as long as he is the one who brings them happiness. Jules Renard. An empty sack is inflated by the wind, an empty head by vanity. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. In Buddhism, humor plays a significant role as a safety valve and lightning rod, allowing for the release of excessive tension and avoiding fanaticism. An attitude of healthy humor, devoid of excessive irony, is a natural sign of Buddhist development. How do you recognize a yogi? By their laughter. This phrase belongs to the 16th Gyalwai Karmapa, the head of the Karma Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. Interestingly, serious intellectual communication between Western academic humanitarians involved in Buddhist studies, regardless of their personal religious stance or lack thereof, and authentic carriers of Buddhist traditions, highly educated Tibetan monastic scholars, usually occurs in an atmosphere of friendly openness. Tibetan monks are generally approachable and easy to communicate with. Unlike European or especially Russian Buddhists, they possess a remarkable sense of humor and sparkling self-irony. Perhaps this is because Buddhism is their natural tradition, while for Russian Buddhists, excluding Buryats, Tuvans, and Kalmyks, it's more of a protest religious identity. In the folklore of many countries, in proverbs, sayings, and tales, negative attitudes toward pompous, arrogant people and positive attitudes toward self-deprecating humor are vividly reflected. Ivan the Fool is one of the most popular heroes of Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian fairy tales. According to some versions, his name with the epithet fool serves as a protective charm against the evil eye. He is the epitome of a person with no pretentious importance. He acts unpredictably, contrary to the logic of serious people with their practical minds, making unconventional decisions, always able to laugh at himself, and, surprisingly, achieves success. He obtains the Firebird, a magical ring, a beautiful bride, and half a kingdom. In the cultural analysis by academician D.S. Lakachev, Ivan the Fool is seen as a secular parallel to the fool for Christ's sake, voluntarily renouncing status in the name of selfless love and hidden wisdom. Of all the vices that degrade a person, selfishness is the most vile and despicable. William Makepeace Thackeray. Don't look too high, you'll get dust in your eye. Ivan the Fool's closest relative in Eastern tales is the legendary Nasreddin. Both are cheerful jokers, full of irony and self-irony, and they behave quite similarly. Once, Nasreddin took grain to the mill. While waiting in line, he occasionally poured some grain from others' bags into his own. The miller noticed this and asked, "Aren't you ashamed, Mullah? What are you doing?" "Well, I'm sort of crazy," Nasreddin replied. "If you're crazy, why don't you pour your grain into others' bags?" Nasreddin replied, "I said I was crazy, but I didn't say I was a fool." Clearly, humor and irony can make life easier and more pleasant. And science supports this with evidence. Studies have shown that humor develops people's resilience to stress and the ability to recover their emotional strength much more quickly. If you can laugh at yourself, you can forgive yourself, and if you can forgive yourself, you can forgive those around you, writes psychologist Susan Sparks. Indeed, if we possess self-irony, it means we accept that we are not perfect and see no need to harshly punish ourselves for it. Laughter and humor help us not only resist stress and depression but also build good relationships with others. Scientists have found a direct link between the ability to laugh at oneself and optimism, which is why it's no surprise that such people are easier to get along with, and they're often the ones who can help find solutions even in difficult situations. They don't fall into despair and can infect others with their joy. A self-ironic person accepts their humanity and that of others, so they are less likely to harshly criticize others. Laughing at yourself is laughter, laughing at others is a sin. All the above doesn't mean that being serious is wrong. However, it's important to understand that life is diverse, and the secret lies in finding the right balance in everything we do, including our emotional expression. A constantly serious and self-important person can repel others. They project an attitude that suggests they are critical of the people they interact with. And in truly difficult situations, this constant seriousness can lead to an even greater dramatization of everything happening, which can worsen the situation even more. So why can self-irony and humor help solve even the toughest problems? Is it just an emotional spark? Not only. Science tells us that humor and intelligence are inextricably linked. In 1990, biologist A. Michael Johnson published a study confirming the connection between a person's sense of humor and their problem-solving abilities. It was found that the right hemisphere of the brain is involved in understanding jokes as well as in processes related to solving tasks of varying complexity. People with damaged or less developed right hemispheres have a weak or absent response to irony and humor. Later, he also studied and confirmed the close link between the development of humor and learning abilities. Dr. Alan Rice found that people who quickly respond to jokes and love surprises handle life's challenges much more effectively. If you love joking about others, learn to joke about yourself too. Egoists are capricious and cowardly in the face of duty. They have a perpetual, cowardly aversion to committing to any duty. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Joke about yourself, it's healthier to laugh. Fyodor Dostoevsky. Make fun of yourself, you'll laugh healthier. A sense of humor is a very important characteristic of one's personal brand. It's beneficial if people talk about us as those who joke well, without losing our sense of dignity. Finding the right balance in this is not difficult. It's enough to make several jokes about yourself for every one joke aimed at others. Letting go of self-importance does not imply giving up high moral and social status, whether you already have it or passionately desire it. You should leap, but with your feet firmly on the ground like the Queen of England. She didn't sue over the film The Naked Gun, and nothing terrible happened to her status, the whole world still bows to her majesty.